Many of our listeners work in, I mean, they're national, a lot are expats too, but they're working in obviously a transnational situation. There are cultural issues. They in some cases, they've got to be very careful of the boss's expectation. Asia in particular, right? I mean, if the boss expects me to be there, I got to be there, even though they don't want to be there. But the other side of it is, I think there's just a fear of those working cross culturally to even say something as innocuous as, "Do you want to walk together? Do you want to learn more about Jesus? Do you want to go on this discipleship journey?" How do you? So let's assume all things being equal, it's a fairly safe place. We're not talking about a place where that's a hard word for me. Proselytizing will get you thrown out of the country. I'm not talking about that. Could happen. Many of our listeners are there. But just in the general, how do you, Joel, know who to approach? How do you, is it and then what do you actually do? I mean, I don't mean mechanically, but how do your experience in this, how do you do it?
I'm gotten to the point where I'm brave enough that if I come across a Christian and we're having a conversation that revolves around this, comes around this, I'll ask them if they're discipling someone, and if they're not, and they're showing interest, I'm very willing to say, I'm going to pour into this and see if they're interested. But more important than that, I think, is if someone's wanting to go down this path and doesn't know who or how to go about it, we always say, who are your five? Who are the five people that if you could, you would want to disciple? And say, start praying for those people. It's quite amazing, because if you think about it, you usually have someone in mind. They're usually someone that's important to you or close to your life. Maybe someone that you've never been comfortable enough really talking about your faith, or maybe someone who had a faith and's fallen away, or maybe someone who's in the church that you just would really like to spend that time with. I think when you start praying for those five, you're basically opening yourself up for God to start doing stuff.
That's the key point right there, I think. I just, when you say that, because we want a method, and method's fine, but method without the power of the Spirit is going to be pretty ineffective. But watch what happens. I know a guy that started a business in China many years ago, and he didn't even speak the language. And all he could do was pray for people. But God used his prayers to work in hundreds of his employees over the course of years. To your point, just start praying for them.
Yeah, and be intentional. Really be, who are the people, but also be open and say, one of the things we say is if you're not in a disciple making relationship, find someone who understands this. Now, that's not always easy in the environment that we are in now, because I don't think it's well practiced. It's not the right word. But I do think that if your heart is in a place where you want to be in a disciple journey, God rewards that. I've never known God not to reward that. Now, I don't know how it'll look for every person, but I've never known him to be like, oh, you want to disciple someone? No. You want to be in a discipleship journey? No, I'm not going to bring anyone into your life who knows how to do this. I'm not going to give you any opportunity to learn how to do it. Just not my experience.
There's another great piece of news for our listeners is God wants to do this more than you do. He will bring those people into your life. Ask him for that, right? All right.
In fact, if I can jump in there, if you were to break down one thing Jesus says that encompasses everything that he said, it is Matthew 28:18-20. I can bring out a Bible verse that says you should feed the poor and take care of the widows, and you should love one another. You do this and do that. But each of those things is just a unique piece. It doesn't involve the rest of your life or this or that. Whereas when he says, obey all that I command, everything else that we think of as mission is in that verse.
So
that's not true of the other verses.